How's it, YouTube? It's been a while since we posted anything on this channel due to certain circumstances, etc. However, today's video was a question raised to me by one of our subscribers, and he asked that we go over this tutorial in a little bit more detail in the sense of how to export your renders, and also how to include the color materials on an OBJ file that's been imported from Mixamo. So this is going to be another overview of the same tutorial. However, it's going to be a little bit more in depth, and we'll take it from there. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Smash that like button if you do like this video, and hit the subscribe button so that you can get more content like this whenever I upload anything. Cool, so let's get started. So obviously, first of all, we're going to head over to Blender, because this is where everything is going to happen. So again, I just want to hop over to this video, which is our original video, the easy character rigging with Mixamo. And then thanks to Yash, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Thanks for the question, buddy. It's amazing to see that people are watching our tutorials and actually supporting the channel. So this one is especially for you, just because you asked. In future, if you guys have any more questions, feel free to drop a comment down below, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. So okay, cool. So we're gonna head over to Blender, and then the character that we're gonna be working with is a character called Vincent from Blender Cloud. So I'm gonna show you guys where to download it and how to start editing it or removing the original rig so it can be used on Mixamo and then back into Blender. However, there is a little bit of a disclaimer where Mixamo animations do slow down Blender. So when you guys do use this, please just be wary of that your system will slow down quite tremendously, just to keep up with what Mixamo puts out. So we're gonna head on over to Blender Cloud. Okay, and then we're gonna download the free character called Vincent. Alright, so let's just find Vincent. And all of these links will be in the description down below, so you don't necessarily have to go look for it, it will be in the description. So and from here, here's the character called Vincent, and we can just download that. So I'll put this just in another folder on my desktop. Save that. Perfect. So once that is done, what you want to do is you want to open that file. Okay, called Vincent. Awesome. So now you have Vincent here. So the first thing that we have to do, obviously, is remove all the current rigs and all the other assets that's currently here, just so that we can have the base module for this tutorial. So we want to get rid of the background, we want to get rid of the camera, we want to get rid of the key light, we want to get rid of the rims, get rid of that folder, and then all these rigging materials over here, delete it. You don't need it. And then leave the extra objects, leave the widgets, or extra objects can also go, and just delete all of that. And then Vincent low poly you can also delete. Just delete all of those files as well, so that you only have this rig here left. So the first thing that we're going to do now is obviously, and this is quite a longer approach, a little bit longer approach than the previous one, whereas we just used the low poly ones without the materials on the other render, just to get the character in a base mode to use. But for this one, we're going to take a little bit of a detour route on this, so that it's easier to use. So what we're going to do is we're going to go File, Export, and then export as Wavefront OBJ first. Okay, so we're going to head over there, and then what we want to do is you can either create a folder or just paste it in like that. I'm going to create a folder so I can keep it separately, so I'll just call it OBJ, and then export it. It does take a while to export OBJ files in Blender, as it does use your CPU quite a lot just to convert the images to OBJ. Cool. So now we've got that. So in the folder, you will see in this folder you will see two files. It is the actual OBJ file, and then the MTL. Now the MTL is the material file that goes along with it. Okay, so in order to get those colors back onto the OBJ file, you need that material file. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to delete this, delete all of this, scroll all the way down. It is quite a lot of files, as Blender likes their rigging. So just delete all of that, and then from there what we're going to do is we're going to import OBJ and then import Vincent. So now you notice that there's a lot of stuff that's there, and the stuff that we just deleted is back. Okay, so we want to end up getting rid of all of these things again. So from CS wrist all the way up, and it is quite a lengthy process. It does take a little bit longer to do all of this. So we delete all of that, and just delete this the low poly body material as well. Yep, that one. Oops, I deleted the wrong one. Delete that, and then just make sure we've got everything else that is necessary for this tutorial. Cool, so now we've got the actual character, and as you can see we are back with the materials intact. Okay, so now what we can do is we go File, then Export, and then export as an FBX file. So this is the actual file that we're going to be using in order to get the color with the module into Mixamo. So I'll just call this folder FBX. Go in there. You can leave all the settings as is. The only thing that you're going to have to turn off is bake animation, as we don't need animation on this thing, and everything else you can keep the same. And just say export FBX. It probably will take a while, and then just have a look. Cool, so it's there. So now what we can do is we can head over to Mixamo.com. Mixamo.com is obviously it's a free platform that you can use in order to rig or animate characters, provided that the character is already in a T pose, or an A pose for that matter. Then what you want to do is, as you can see, I've already uploaded my character, but I will walk you through the steps again. So you'll go upload, select the file, and then go to your character, which is Vincent. Click open, and then as Mixamo brings in that character, you will just have to align certain things, certain points on the character, just to make it rig, just to make sure that Mixamo actually rigs the character for you, as they do have an auto rigging system that actually helps you with all of this. So it does take a while. It takes up to 2 to 5 minutes just for Mixamo to actually get your character in order or in place for you guys to use. So let's just give it a moment. Okay, cool. So as you can see, the process has been done. The character is actually being uploaded right now, and there you go. There's Vincent. So now the next step is, obviously, if you click next, you'll see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points you have to actually align. So where it says chin, align that up to as close to as possible as to the character's chin. The wrists, closely as possible to the wrists. Okay, and then elbows the same. I'm just estimating that the elbows is there, as you can't really see the character's elbows. And knees, the same with the knees. So it would be more or less in that little crease over there. And then the groin, which is right there. Alright, then from there, all that you have to do is leave it on standard skeleton, and then click next. This will also take another 2 minutes, as you can see, so that the algorithm actually just rigs the character for you. Okay, cool. So after the upload is done and you've rigged everything, and then Mixamo will give you this. I will give you this little character that's been fully rigged, and you can actually start to choose your motion capture data from the left hand side. So what I'm going to do is I want to choose idle, just as an idle character, and let's scroll through a little bit and just see what there is. And I'm going to choose happy idle, I'll put the overdrive on, say, maybe 35. Character arm space on maybe 60. Yeah. And then total frames, I'll bring it down to about 30, as I don't want a long idle process. Okay, let's reset that maybe back to 100. We can edit that in Blender. That's quite fine. And then from here, what we want to do is we want to click download, and then leave it as on FBX with the skin on. You can change the keyframe reduction to uniform if you want to, but I just leave it at none, and the frames per second I'll leave on 30, and then just click download. So now it's going to download the asset, and I'm going to just leave this as happy idle, as well as download a normal T-pose. Awesome. I'll just call that T-pose, and then I'm going to look for one called walking, and I'm just going to look for general, yeah, so this one. I'm going to drop the speed down to about 35, the stride to about 40, overdrive down to 40, and then arm space up to 60, and then I'm going to say in place, so that he walks in place, because when you're doing animation like this, you don't always want them to move forward or backwards within the mocap data. You actually want to do that within Blender yourself. So I'm going to leave it at that, and as you can see, our character has a nice little walk to it, nice stride to it, and all I'm going to say is download. I'll leave everything as is, and cool, I'm going to leave that as walking as well. So we don't necessarily need the T-pose, however, it's just good to download to have it for your own reference. So once that is all done, we head back into Blender, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this one over here, and I'm going to import those three files. So I'm going to say import FBX, go to FBX, and I'm going to say happy idle first. Perfect. So now we've got the little happy idle armature over here. I am going to click on armature, and I'm going to press H to hide it, and then I'm going to select my whole character over here, and I'm just going to move him over to the side. Oops. Alright, grab, just unhide the armature, grab the armature, everything, and move it over to the side, and then just hide the armature again. Then I'm going to import the walking part as well. So just import the walking. Perfect. Now that we've got the walking part as well, what we want to do now is, because now we've got the character with its materials and everything, but now notice what happens. Even if I play this, my frame rate is going to drop to very low frame rates, like just below 10 at some point. So as you can see, the frame rate is freakishly low, but that's fine. Don't worry about that. We will work with that as we go along. So what we're going to do now is we can leave the armature as is, and I am just going to grab this thing, this part over here and this window, and I'm gonna go to the dope sheet. Okay, cool. So as you can see, here's the dope sheet with both my animations in there, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch this over to action editor. Okay, so the first armature, I am actually going to delete the walking character, okay, so that I just have the idle character that's left. The reason why we imported it is because we actually want the motion capture data from the other one as well. So what I'm going to do here is just to expand my frames, I'm going to stop this, go to timeline, and I'm going to increase my frames to about 300 frames. And I'll go back to my dope sheet, and then I will change it to, leave it on action editor. And then now, as you can see, I've got my character there. He's nice and happy. Okay, so I want to bring this up to about 50 frames. Okay, and then from the 50 frames, I am actually going to delete that. And then over here, select my other armature on this little button over here, which is armature 1, which is my walking. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to select all, or just press A to select all. I'm going to Control C to copy. I'm going to go back to my other one, bring that all the way to 50, and say paste. So now what's going to happen is we actually have a character with two motion capture data. So I've got one where he's happy chappy, and then all of a sudden he starts walking. Okay, so he's playing, and then he's walking. However, as you can see, it's a little bit choppy. Okay, the reason for that is because we still need to play with the graph in order to make it nice and smooth. The transition from one point to another, we actually have to play with the graph a little bit to make it nice and smooth. Okay, so we won't cover that in this animation over here. Okay, so now that you have both of your animations set up and you're ready to export, so what we're going to do now is just cover the fundamentals of actually exporting a video or animation into video. So first thing that we want to do is, or what I'm going to do is, in this one I'm going to hide the armature since we don't need it. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to add a light, and I'll add an area light. I'll bring that up, and I'm going to try and align it with my character. Okay, and then maybe push it a little bit forward, up, and I'm going to bring or shine the area more or less around my character. Okay, then just for this purpose, I think I'm going to change the area light. I'm going to change it into a spotlight. Yeah, that works better. I'm going to bring it closer to my character so that the spot is actually on him. Alright, so light, I'm going to bring it closer to my character, and I'm actually going to switch over to viewport shader. Alright, and then go back a little bit, bring that light a little bit down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the power to about 50. Alright, I'm going to change the color slightly to like a golden hour time, and then from there I'm going to increase my render samples to 128 since I am rendering with Eevee, and my viewport I'll leave at 16. You can switch on ambient occlusion, screen space reflections if you want to. For this purpose it's not really necessary. And then from here what we want to do is we actually want to change our resolution of our render. So I'm going to change mine to 1920 by 1080, which is a normal 1080p video. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do is, if you're doing film, okay, and film is, and we all know that filming any video, your frame rates for cinematic videos is going to be 24 FPS, 60 FPS, and all of those are more used for podcasts and interviews and stuff like that. So I'm going to switch mine to 24 FPS. And then the next thing that you want to do for rendering, okay, because this is something that a lot of people don't know, is how to actually render out of Blender. So what we want to do is we want to first of all select our folder. So I'm just going to select this folder, and then I'm going to give it a name and call it Vincent Render. Okay, click accept, and then I'm going to change the file format from JPEG to FFmpeg video. Okay, and then from here scroll down to encoding, and now you can change it either to MKV, which is Matroska, or MP4. So I'm going to choose MP4, and the video codec I'm going to leave on H264. The output I'm going to put on lossless so that you don't lose any quality. Okay, and since we've got no audio, we don't need any audio. Post-processing you can leave as is. And then just another thing that we want to change is, if you're doing renders for cinematic purposes, you want to head over to color management, make sure that your view transformation is on filmic, and then you can obviously play with the contrast here for your character. So here we've got a very high contrast, we've got high, we've got medium, we've got low. For this one you can do none as well. For this one I actually want a very high contrast so that the character is nice and clean. Okay, and then from there, the last thing that you have to do is before you render out, okay, if you change this over to timeline, okay, our character has about 100 frames or 99 frames in total. As you can see, my PC is very slow, but that's also because Mixamo does slow your PC down, or Mixamo render examples that slow your PC down. So I'm gonna go and see where's the last frame, which is 97, and I'm gonna change that to 97 so that we only have 97 frames to export. Okay, and then take it all the way back to 0. So if you want to play through your animation, you can do that as well. Cool. So the last and final step to actually render out this animation is you will head over to render and then render animation. But before we do that, make sure that you save your work. Always save your work so that we know that if anything does go wrong during the render, that you can always just go back to the work that you've done. So save, okay, and then head over to render and then render animation. Oops, sorry, as you can see, it said that I can't render because I don't have a camera set up. So let's set up a camera. Press Ctrl A or Shift A, and then select camera. And now what you want to do with your camera is you want to line your camera up with your character. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to drag my camera across. Okay, and then in my camera I'm just going to make the focal length 35 millimeters. I'm going to add on depth of field. You don't necessarily have to add on depth of field, but you can if you've got any other objects in the background. Then that would be and that would help you to actually focus out certain things that you don't want to have in the shot. So I'm going to make my f-stop 3.5. I'm just going to leave it like that, and then from there I'm going to hit on my numpad 0. That will snap to my camera. I'm going to open this active tool on the side. I'm going to go to view and I'm going to say lock to camera view only, and then close it by pressing the button in. And then now I'm going to head over to the object properties. Make sure that your camera is selected for this. I'm going to head over to object properties, and now I'm just going to play with the scale and rotation of the camera. Okay, so I'm going to just position my camera properly. So I'm going to change that to 0, change that to 0. Oops. Maybe make that 75, not 753, 75. Perfect. And then my Z rotation I am going to leave at 0. I'm going to lift on my Z axis a bit. Okay, zoom in slightly, say 5 or -5 actually. Alright, and then my location as well, I'm just going to try and center it as much as I possibly can. And then, yeah, just try and center as much as you can. And then just angle it properly. You can use the middle mouse button and then obviously your mouse to angle your shot properly. And then if you want to zoom in, you can zoom in there. Perfect. And now I'm just going to hide the armature. And if you just want to render out an image, you'll go render image, just to see what it will look like before the final render. And there's our character Vincent. So if you want to save this image, you go image, save as, and now we've got Vincent. Okay, perfect. And now let's render out this video or the animation that we just made. So we'll go render and render animation. Depending on how strong your computer is, it will take some time to actually render out everything. But as mentioned before, Mixamo's animations that you import into Blender does slow your computer down quite a bit. Okay, so it is quite crucial that obviously you have the time to actually export everything. And we've got 97 frames, so this is literally going to export 97 frames on the video, and this video will be exported back to the folder that you have selected. So not going to bore you with the details of the export, and then I'm just going to pause the video here and actually get back to you once the export is done. Great, so now that our render is done, we can actually head over to the folder that you've created and actually go and look at the video. So if I open this, then here you can see there's our fully motion captured video. So again, do bear in mind that the animation is a little bit choppy, as we did not spend time to actually play with the graphs to actually make it a lot smoother, but this will give you more or less an understanding of how to play with animation within Blender, and obviously also exporting modules or characters or assets from FBX to OBJ, and then retrieving the color information once you've imported it into Mixamo and then back into Blender. I do understand it's a little bit more of a lengthy process, and some other creators, content creators, might have easier ways in doing it, but this is the way that, or the method that actually works for me, and it's a lot easier for me than it is maybe for someone else. However, I would advise you do your own research on it as well, and then see what works for you. So again, if you guys like today's video, hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, and drop your comments down below on what it is that you would like to see next. Feel free to ask me any questions, and also our social links is also down below. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those things, and then we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers guys.